There was a silence before memory, a silence not born of absence, but of fullness, of oceans breathing against the shore, of forests whispering without need of language, of stars spilling their light into skies unbroken by human thought. It was a silence that belonged not to us, but to the earth itself, a silence so complete that it stretched across ages we can only imagine. Before history carved itself into clay, before human voices began weaving stories into the air, time was already flowing, vast, unmeasured, and endless. In that silence, there were no clocks, no tick of seconds, no measured beat of minutes. Time did not belong to gears or sand trapped inside glass. It moved instead like a river without banks, broad and unhurried, carrying all things forward in its current. The only rhythms were those of nature, the rising and falling of the sun, the patient sweep of the moon across the night sky, the turning of constellations that no longer exist in our heavens. The earth pulsed with its own heartbeat, slow and steady, measured not in hours, but in seasons, migrations, growth, decay. To enter that silence is to leave behind the narrowness of modern timekeeping. We live bound by numbers, by alarms, by a calendar that boxes eternity into grids. But in the age before memory, there was no such confinement. Creatures lived in the openness of duration itself, in the long arcs of summer rains, in the brief blaze of flowering plants, in the endless return of day into night. For the beings who roamed the ancient earth, time was not a line but a rhythm, not a cage but a sea. And within that sea, there was sleep. Even in our own lives, sleep bends time. A single minute can open into vast landscapes of memory and vision. Hours can vanish in the blink of a dream or stretch into what feels like entire lifetimes. In dreams, the past returns unbidden. The future flickers before us in images we do not understand. Time folds and unfolds itself, turning seconds into eternities and eternities into moments. If this is true for us, how might it have been for the creatures who came long before us? The dinosaurs, who ruled the world for more than 160 million years, did not measure life in the way we do. Their time was etched into their bones, marked by the growth rings of their skeletons, whispered in the cycles of migration, in the instincts that carried them across rivers, plains, and forests. Time for them was hunger and fullness, birth and death, summer heat and winter scarcity. And when they slept, if, as we now suspect, they dreamed as their descendants the birds still do, then perhaps time opened into another dimension entirely. Imagine a massive creature, heavy with muscle and bone, lying in stillness beneath the canopy of ancient trees. Its breathing slows, its eyes close, and the rhythms of its waking life begin to dissolve. Neurons spark, visions ignite. The calls of others, the scent of food, the memory of pursuit, the instinct of flight. All of these might weave themselves into landscapes not so different from our own dreams. And in those dreams, minutes might stretch into hours or collapse into an instant. The elastic nature of time that we know in sleep may have been alive within them too. In our world, we carve time into rigid compartments. A moment lasts 60 seconds. An hour holds 60 minutes. We live by the tyranny of numbers, by the ceaseless march of precision. But in truth, no one experiences time this way. A joyful day collapses into a heartbeat. A moment of fear lasts forever. The ticking of the clock is a human invention. The experience of time is something far more fluid, something that bends to perception, to consciousness, to dreams. This is the great contrast we begin with, the artificial time of human culture versus the flowing, breathing time of the natural world. The one is sharp, exact, unyielding. The other is soft, pliable, and infinite. The dinosaurs did not live by the clock. They lived by the turning of the earth, the cycles of rain and drought, the slow rhythm of stars wheeling overhead. And so, when they dreamed, their time may have stretched into silences deeper than oceans, into nights that seemed eternal, into visions that carried them far beyond the waking world. The silence before memory is not an emptiness. It is a fullness too vast for language, a fullness we can approach only through wonder. It is the stillness of a universe before our counting began, before human stories tried to bind eternity into words. And it is here, in this silence, that our meditation begins. For to imagine how dinosaurs dreamed is to imagine a world not only of creatures and landscapes, but of time itself, time as it once was, free and endless, unfolding without clock or measure. As we drift into this thought, we prepare ourselves for the journey that follows. A journey not only through science, but through imagination. Not only through history, but through the timelessness that sleep opens for every living being. For when we ask what it meant for dinosaurs to dream, we are also asking what it means for us. What is it to live in time? What is it to close our eyes and slip into a world where time bends and stretches, where past and future dissolve into a single, eternal now? In this silence before memory, we find the first glimmer of the answer. Time in the age of dinosaurs did not march forward as it does for us. It flowed like a river, wide and slow, carrying with it the lives of countless creatures, carrying with it the endless cycles of forests rising and falling, oceans creeping inland and retreating again. It was a river lined not with the walls of cities, but with the towering silhouettes of ferns, cycads, and conifers. Time was measured not in minutes, not in hours, but in leaves unfolding with the dawn, in shadows stretching long across the earth as evening came, in scales that glistened in sunlight and dulled in the cool of night. To live in such a world was to live within vast rhythms. The Cretaceous day did not feel like our day, hemmed in by schedules and artificial light. It stretched beneath skies heavy with volcanic haze, beneath constellations unfamiliar to us now, beneath suns that warmed a world thrumming with life far stranger than the one we know. For a dinosaur, time was the call of another across a valley, the ripple of water disturbed by movement, the scent of plants carried on the wind. Their sense of existence was tethered not to clocks, but to the cycles of growth and decay, of hunger satisfied and hunger returned again. Imagine the long, slow migrations that marked the passing of seasons. Herds moving across plains, not in measured hours, but in days that bled into one another, in nights where stars rose and fell like distant fires. The memory of such journeys was etched into muscle, into instinct. For creatures of the Jurassic and Cretaceous, time was not abstract, it was lived. It pressed itself into every moment of thirst, every pause in shade, every sound of a predator in the dark. And yet, for all its immediacy, time was immense. A forest might live for centuries, only to fall beneath floods or volcanic ash, and still, life would return. Generations of creatures passed, each one a brief flicker in the span of millions of years. Time stretched differently in such a world. For an individual dinosaur, life may have felt full, days of searching, of nesting, of survival. But for the planet, those lives were no more than single breaths in an endless current. When we look back on that time, we often see it compressed. In books, it is reduced to a chart, a neat timeline of periods and epochs. But to live it, to move through it as a creature did, was to feel time as an atmosphere, constant, surrounding, immeasurable. To a grazing hadrosaur, an afternoon of feeding was an eternity of motion and sound. To a predator in waiting, a few heartbeats of stillness stretched into forever. Each creature lived inside its own river of time, flowing differently, branching into countless streams. The world itself mirrored this elasticity. Days were shorter then, the earth spinning more quickly on its axis. A year held more days, but did the creatures notice? Perhaps not. For them, time was still the rise of heat and the return of rain, the cooling of air after sunset, the eternal recurrence of hunger and rest. To them, life was a cycle without end, a song repeated endlessly by the earth itself. In that world, time was not an enemy. It was not something to be measured, wasted, or regretted. It was simply the current in which life moved. When dinosaurs dreamed, if they did, as science increasingly suggests, perhaps they dreamed not in our sense of measured minutes, but in a vastness, a depth, a timelessness that reflected the world itself. In their dreams, perhaps the river of time grew boundless, carrying them into landscapes beyond waking, just as ours does. And so, when we say that time was a river of scales and leaves, we mean that it was a river filled with living moments. The rustle of branches, the hiss of insects, the shimmer of sunlight across reptilian skin. It was a river that carried not only life, but the very sense of being alive. To imagine that world is to step into a time not of clocks, but of endless rhythms, flowing forever through the heart of deep prehistory. Sleep is one of the oldest mysteries of life. Long before humans first closed their eyes beneath the safety of firelight, creatures were already surrendering to the quiet pull of rest. And with rest, perhaps, came dreams. Today we know that birds, the living descendants of dinosaurs, enter REM sleep, their tiny bodies twitching with imagined flight, their brains sparking with patterns that look strikingly similar to our own. Crocodiles, too, show hints of this inner world. Even reptiles and fish reveal electrical storms in their brains that suggest, in their own way, they too may drift into dreamscapes. If this is true, now what does it say about the deep past? Could the dinosaurs, those rulers of Earth for more than 100 million years, have wandered through dream worlds of their own? Science gives us glimpses, small and fragile, of this possibility. The neural architecture for REM sleep is ancient, stretching back through evolutionary history. The birds that dream of flying through forests today carry within them the inheritance of their ancestors. Their rapid eye movements, their fluttering wings in sleep, may echo patterns once alive in the minds of creatures long vanished. To imagine this is to step into an intimacy with the prehistoric world, not through bones or fossils, but through the private landscapes of the mind. Dreams are different from waking life. They take the ordinary and transform it, stretching, compressing, rearranging, until time itself no longer obeys its usual laws. A single heartbeat may contain a memory of flight across valleys. A moment of stillness may open into an endless chase. If birds and mammals dream today, then it is not impossible that the ancient giants of the Cretaceous and Jurassic did as well. Their sleep, their inner visions, would have been as real to them as our dreams are to us. Consider a hadrosaur drifting into slumber after a long day of grazing. In its mind, images might surface, the remembered sound of its herd, the cool shade of trees, the sudden presence of a predator. These impressions, woven together, might stretch into dream landscapes of safety or fear. Or picture a predator like a dromaeosaur, whose days were filled with tension and pursuit. In sleep, its brain might rehearse the leaps and hunts of its waking life, practicing survival in the theater of dreams. Just as our own dreams often replay fragments of our days, so too might theirs have stitched together echoes of lived experience. To think of dinosaurs dreaming is to blur the sharp line we often draw between ourselves and the ancient world. We tend to imagine them as strange, alien, incomprehensible. But in this possibility, that they dreamed as we do, we discover a bridge across the abyss of time. The same mystery that animates our nights may have stirred within them as well. In that sense, dreaming is not only human. It may be a thread connecting countless forms of life, binding the present to the deep past. And yet, what would such dreams have felt like? For us, dreams are often rich with symbols, shaped by memory, language, and thought. For a dinosaur, they may have been simpler, more visceral, a flood of sensations, a swirl of instinct, a tapestry of movement and sound. But in their simplicity lies a profound truth. To dream at all is to step outside the strict flow of waking time, to enter a space where seconds stretch, where moments fold, where inner life blossoms unseen. This section is a meditation on that possibility, that dinosaurs carried within them the same secret passage we know so well, that in the quiet hours of night, beneath stars unfamiliar to us now, their minds opened to worlds beyond waking. And in those worlds, time stretched differently. It bent itself into loops of memory and vision, dissolving into silence when they woke. Science can never show us their dreams directly. Fossils cannot capture imagination. But by looking at the living, at birds twitching in sleep, at reptiles shifting in quiet slumber, we glimpse the shadows of ancient dreamers. It is enough to suggest that dreaming did not begin with us. It began before us, and it continues still, a current flowing through life itself. And so, when we close our eyes tonight, when we drift into our own landscapes of impossible time, we may be entering a mystery that the dinosaurs once knew as well. In that sense, every dream is an echo, not only of our day, but of ages when the world belonged to scales and feathers, to claws and wings. Dreams are older than memory, older than history. They may be as ancient as life itself. Long before humans invented the clock, long before seconds and minutes carved the day into fragments, the world was already keeping time. The earth itself is a clock, its rhythms written in stone, in water, in bone. Dinosaurs lived not by mechanical hours, but by the pulse of ancient cycles, vast, repeating patterns that measured their days, their years, and their lives. The moon was one such keeper. Its phases pulled at the oceans, lifting tides in steady breath. Along coasts where great reptiles swam, the rising and falling of waters dictated movement and migration. The cycle of the moon was a rhythm older than memory, guiding creatures in silence. To live in that time was to live within this lunar beat, not as numbers marked on calendars, but as instinct woven into blood. There were other clocks as well. The seasons turned in endless circles, painting the land with rhythms of abundance and scarcity. In spring, plants unfurled with explosive growth, offering food and shelter. In autumn, leaves withered, and the earth shifted toward silence. Dinosaurs felt this turning in their bones, in the timing of nesting, in the migrations of herds, in the flowering and fading of the world around them. Each season was not a date on a page, but a living force shaping survival. Even trees were clocks. Each ring within their trunks marked a year, a silent recording of droughts and rains, of fertile times and lean ones. The same is true of bones. When paleontologists peer into the fossilized remains of dinosaurs, they find growth rings like those of trees, preserved in ancient marrow. Each ring is a marker of time lived, of cycles endured. These are not abstractions, but the very pulse of life inscribed into the bodies of creatures long gone. The stars, too, kept time. Constellations shifted across the sky, and though the dinosaurs could not name them, they lived beneath their steady turning. Night after night, the heavens moved with a precision far older than our instruments. Migration routes may have been guided by these celestial paths, just as birds navigate by starlight today. In the stillness of prehistoric nights, the slow wheeling of the stars was an eternal reminder that time was vast, cyclical, and endless. For us, time is rigid, mechanical, sliced into equal pieces. But for the dinosaurs, it was living. It was hunger that came at dusk, thirst that drew them to rivers at dawn. It was the rhythm of wings beating, the pause of stillness in the heat of midday, the calling of others across shadowed valleys. These were the clocks of the ancient world, immediate, intimate, embodied. There is a profound contrast here. We measure time externally, with devices separate from ourselves. They tick on walls, glow on screens, count down in numbers detached from feeling. But the dinosaurs lived by clocks within and around them, clocks they did not need to read because they were inseparable from their own existence. To breathe was to move with the pulse of the world. To rest was to align with the turning of the earth. Time was not a prison, but a rhythm that carried them, moment by moment, through life. And in this rhythm, dreams may have arisen. Just as our sleep follows cycles, light and deep, REM and non-REM, so too might theirs have pulsed with inner clocks. The same natural rhythms that guided their waking lives may have shaped their inner ones, creating dreamscapes bound to seasons, to hunger, to instinct. Their minds may have followed invisible timekeepers older than thought itself. When we reflect on the pulse of ancient clocks, we are reminded that time is not one thing. It is many things. It is tidal, lunar, seasonal, biological, cosmic. It is written in bone, in tree, in stone. For the dinosaurs, time was not a number spoken aloud, but a reality lived and breathed. And even in their silence now, we can still trace its beat, the pulse of ancient clocks still echoing through the fossils they left behind. Time, as we live it, is not the same as time as we feel it. A clock insists that a second is always a second, that a minute is always the same length. But in our experience, this is not true. A single moment of terror can seem like an eternity. A single moment of joy can collapse into nothing at all, gone before we can hold it. Our perception bends time, stretches it, folds it, transforms it into something elastic. This is a mystery of consciousness. That time is not only an external reality, but also an internal one. Inside the mind, time becomes fluid, shifting with emotion, attention, and memory. We have all felt it. The long stillness of waiting, where minutes crawl as though unwilling to pass, and the fleeting brightness of happiness, where hours vanish in the blink of an eye. Time within us is not measured by clocks. It is measured by feeling. If this is true for us, then it may have been true for all creatures who ever lived, even in the distant past. Imagine a dinosaur resting in the heat of afternoon, the air heavy with insects, the body lulled by warmth. In that stillness, time may have slowed until each breath felt like an eternity. Now imagine a predator stalking in silence, every sense sharpened, every heartbeat stretched across vast anticipation. A few seconds of waiting might have felt endless, suspended in the tension of survival. In such moments, time itself became something more than a sequence. It became an atmosphere. Dreams amplify this even further. In sleep, we slip into inner worlds where time ceases to obey the ordinary. We dream of long journeys, of conversations, of lifetimes, all in the space of a few minutes. Dinosaurs, if they dreamed, may have experienced the same. A night of sleep might have held countless inner experiences, each unfolding at its own pace, each stretching or collapsing with no regard for waking time. In dreams, a single instant can blossom into entire landscapes, and then vanish at the moment of waking. Consider the small, tender moments that may have expanded into eternity for them. The shade of a fern grove after a long day of movement, the gentle closeness of a herd resting together in safety, the quiet peace of night sounds beneath ancient constellations. For a dinosaur lying in stillness, such moments may have carried the weight of forever. Within their perception, these fragments of life may have stretched like rivers, flowing without end. There is a strange paradox here. To the planet, to geology, the life of an individual dinosaur was a flicker, over in an instant. But to the creature itself, each day was immense, filled with experience that stretched and deepened with perception. The millions of years that separate us from them collapse in comparison to the eternity of a single lived moment. This paradox belongs to us as well. We are creatures of short lifespans within a universe of billions of years, and yet our lives feel vast from the inside. We know what it is to wait endlessly, to feel joy vanish too quickly, to slip into sleep and find ourselves wandering through lifetimes of dream. We, too, live in moments that stretch forever. Perhaps this is the universal condition of consciousness, to bend time within, even as time without moves steadily on. Dinosaurs may not have had language to describe it, but in the stillness of their days, in the tension of their hunts, in the peace of their slumber, they may have known it as deeply as we do. Time is not just what the universe does, it is also what the mind feels. And that feeling is never fixed. It is always stretching, always changing, always flowing. To imagine dinosaurs in this way is to see them not only as prehistoric giants, but as beings who lived in the same mystery we inhabit. Their moments were as fragile, as expansive, as elastic as ours. And though they are gone, the truth of their lived time lingers in us, reminding us that every moment we hold is both fleeting and infinite. For when a moment stretches forever, it does not matter whether it belongs to us or to them. It belongs to the timeless river of perception itself, a river that flows through every dreamer, across every age. When we think of dinosaurs, we often imagine them frozen in a single age, creatures roaming vast plains, thick forests, and primordial swamps. But the truth is stranger and far more immense. Their reign was not a brief chapter, but an entire epic stretching across eons. From their rise in the Triassic, through their flourishing in the Jurassic, to their dominance in the Cretaceous, they carried the world through nearly 200 million years of history. That is time so vast our human minds can barely comprehend it. Civilizations rise and fall in thousands of years. Dinosaurs endured for hundreds of millions. To hold this in imagination is to feel the true weight of eons pressing down upon us. Our human sense of time collapses in comparison. Imagine every city we have ever built, every empire that has ever risen, every story ever told, every invention, every war, every lullaby, all of it compressed into a fraction of the time dinosaurs walked the earth. To them, we are the brief ones, the shadows flickering on the surface of an ancient river. And yet, for the dinosaurs themselves, time was not counted in millions of years. It was counted in moments. The warmth of sunlight across scales, the scent of vegetation carried on the wind, the rhythms of migration and hunting, the cycle of nesting and hatching. The eons that we measure in geology were lived by them as days and nights, as seasons, as lifetimes of creatures who knew nothing of calendars. Their world unfolded slowly, patiently, yet always in motion. The weight of eons felt not as burden, but as continuity. The earth itself bore witness to their passage. Continents drifted, mountains rose, seas expanded and shrank, climates shifted from swamps to deserts, and still the dinosaurs endured. They adapted to changes so profound that, in human terms, they would seem apocalyptic. What we call extinction events came and went, reshaping ecosystems, altering the balance of life, and yet life itself persisted. Some lineages perished, others rose. Over eons, the dinosaurs were not a static group, but a flowing river of forms, diversifying, transforming, becoming both gigantic and small, fierce and gentle, swift and ponderous. There is a humbling silence in this realization. We live in a brief span, counting centuries as though they are long, measuring our lives in decades, feeling time as a burden rushing us forward. But the weight of eons reminds us of another truth. Time is not rushing anywhere. It is vast, slow, patient. It holds us, just as it held them. When we imagine their dreams, we must place them inside this immensity. A single dinosaur's dream was brief, perhaps no more than a flicker of the mind, a night's wandering through inner landscapes. Yet the dreams of all dinosaurs, multiplied across millions upon millions of years, form a silent ocean of experience. Countless nights, countless lives, countless inner worlds lived and lost, stretching across a span longer than all of human history combined. This is the paradox of eons. To us, they feel crushing, almost unbearable to contemplate. But to those who lived within them, they were simply life as it unfolded, step by step, day by day. Dinosaurs did not feel the burden of millions of years, just as we do not feel the burden of our species' future. We only feel the present moment. The eons belong to perspective, to hindsight, to memory. Perhaps this is why the dreams of dinosaurs are so mysterious to us. They existed within a scale of time that we cannot fully inhabit. Their inner lives, if we could glimpse them, would carry the weight of continuity that belongs not to centuries, but to eras. To dream in such a world might be to carry, in one's unconscious, the vastness of time itself, the slow drift of continents, the eternal cycles of stars, the patience of forests that grew for millions of years. The weight of eons also belongs to the earth beneath our feet. Every stone we touch was shaped by that same immensity, by pressures and flows too slow for human senses to grasp. To imagine the dreams of dinosaurs is also to imagine what it means to sleep inside a world that never hurries, a world that changes on scales beyond comprehension. Theirs was a time when the earth itself seemed endless, and their lives, though fleeting in comparison, were still part of something vast. And yet, as heavy as these eons appear to us, there is also something gentle in them. They remind us that existence does not need to be hurried, that what feels immense and unbearable when measured by numbers may feel natural and ordinary when lived moment by moment. Dinosaurs carried the weight of eons simply by being alive. We too carry it, though we rarely notice it, distracted as we are by minutes and hours. In their long reign, dinosaurs reveal to us a truth about time that belongs not to clocks, but to continuity, that existence itself is ancient, enduring, patient, and that inside this vastness, every creature, no matter how small or great, lives as though it were forever. The weight of eons, then, is not only a burden. It is also a gift, the gift of belonging to a story that is far older than ourselves, the gift of dreaming inside a universe that stretches endlessly behind us and endlessly ahead. For the dinosaurs, as for us, life was lived one moment at a time. And yet, across the expanse of eons, those moments became eternity. Night has always been a canvas for dreams. Yet, the night that stretched above the dinosaurs was not the same as ours. To imagine their slumber, we must imagine skies untouched by the glow of cities, untouched by electricity, untouched even by the fires of humankind. Theirs was a night that breathed with purity, a darkness so deep it revealed the universe in full. Above them shimmered constellations we would barely recognize. The slow drift of continents reshaped not only the earth below, but the sky above. Stars shifted over millions of years, their patterns dissolving and reforming. The constellations we name today, Orion, Cassiopeia, Ursa Major, did not exist then, or at least not in any form familiar to us. For the dinosaurs, the heavens held other maps, other symmetries, stories written in arrangements we can no longer trace. And the moon, it was nearer. Slowly, through the ages, it has drifted away from the earth. But in those ancient nights, it loomed larger, brighter, more commanding. Tides surged higher, pulled by its gravity. Shadows on the land stretched long beneath its glow, and perhaps, in the stillness of night, creatures stirred at its brilliance. Imagine a world where the moon was not a distant companion, but an overwhelming presence, a constant reminder of the forces that bind earth to sky. There were other differences too. The atmosphere carried a different composition, richer in oxygen at certain points, denser, more humid, altering the clarity of the stars. Volcanic eruptions would sometimes cloud the skies, veiling the night in ash and smoke for years. At other times, meteor showers rained down more frequently, dazzling the world with fleeting arcs of fire. To sleep under such a sky was to sleep beneath a cosmos more alive, more restless, more commanding than the one we know today. In this difference lies a profound question. How did dinosaurs experience night? We know that many species were diurnal, resting under the shroud of darkness, their great bodies slowed, their hearts steady, their minds drifting. Others were nocturnal, stirring in the hours when predators or prey revealed themselves beneath the silver of the moon. Their inner clocks, like ours, were tied to the turning of the earth. Yet their nights stretched into a silence so deep, a stillness so absolute, that time itself must have felt altered. To fall asleep in such a night was to enter not just rest, but immersion in the eternal. Without artificial light, darkness was complete. The stars became companions, guardians, and mysteries. And in the dreams of dinosaurs, those shifting skies may have taken form. Perhaps they dreamt of endless horizons lit by a swollen moon, or of stars wheeling across the heavens in arcs too vast for waking thought. Perhaps their unconscious minds stitched together the changing patterns of constellations, building worlds upon worlds out of celestial memory. Our nights are fractured, weakened by noise, diluted by light. But theirs were whole. In their dreams, the difference of night may have stretched time itself. A single night beneath the unbroken dome of stars could have felt eternal. The absence of artificial rhythm allowed sleep to expand, dreams to deepen, time to dissolve into timelessness. And there is another mystery, the sounds of night. For us, the dark hours carry whispers of insects, rustle of leaves, distant calls of animals. For dinosaurs, the soundscape was alien. Great insects buzzed with deeper resonance. Amphibians croaked in ancient tones. Giant mammals had not yet appeared. The voices of night belonged to other singers. To close their eyes was not to enter silence, but a chorus foreign to our ears, a living symphony of creatures whose descendants are long vanished. When the night was different, so too were the dreams born within it. We might imagine them as simple, primal, unshaped by language or symbols. Yet simplicity does not mean emptiness. Their dreams were likely filled with scents, sounds, sensations, the press of earth beneath heavy bodies, the sweep of wind across plains, the distant cry of another life stirring in the dark. Perhaps they did not dream as we do, in stories and dialogues, but in flows of feeling and presence, in echoes of instincts replayed across the mind. Still, in the depth of those nights, time itself could bend. To dream without clocks is to dream without limits. To sleep beneath skies unbroken by human artifice is to feel oneself as part of eternity. The dinosaurs lived beneath a night that made them small, and in their dreams, perhaps, they carried that immensity within. Even extinction could not erase this truth, that once the night was different. Once the world belonged to creatures who dreamed beneath a moon that loomed larger, beneath stars that drew maps unknown to us, beneath darkness unbroken, vast, eternal. Their nights stretched across eons, each one a fragment of an endless chain. And as we close our eyes tonight, beneath skies still carrying echoes of theirs, we might remember that our dreams too are held in the same cosmic silence. The night that cradles us is older than memory, older than time itself, a river flowing through every creature that has ever slept, from the first to the last. If we wish to understand how dinosaurs dreamed, we must step not only beneath their skies, but into the living heart of their world, the forests. For the earth of their time was not barren, but breathing, humming, saturated with life on a scale both familiar and alien. To imagine their sleep, we must first imagine the pulse of these ancient forests, for it was within their shadows that dreams unfolded. The forests of the Mesozoic were unlike ours. Towering conifers stretched skyward like green cathedrals. Cycads, with their thick trunks and crown-like leaves, stood as living sculptures, ancient even then. Ferns unfurled across the ground in endless carpets, weaving the earth into a soft tapestry. And there were trees we no longer know, species lost to time, their forms reconstructed only in fossil traces. The air was heavy with humidity, dense with oxygen, carrying the thick perfume of resin and soil. Insects larger than a human hand darted through shafts of sunlight. Giant dragonflies, their wings whispering like silk, traced circles above ponds. Beetles gleamed like jewels in the dim light beneath the canopy. This was not just an ecosystem. It was a breathing organism, a living body with rhythms of its own. In daylight, the forests pulsed with heat, sound, and motion, great reptiles stirring through the undergrowth, herds moving across clearings, predators stalking the edges of silence. At night, the forests exhaled. The temperature dropped. Mist rose from damp earth. The chorus of insects swelled. The canopy became a ceiling of shadow, pierced only by starlight and the looming glow of the nearer moon. To fall asleep in such a forest was to be held by the living pulse of the earth. Dinosaurs rested against the roots of giant trees, their bodies warmed by the lingering heat of the day. The forest enclosed them, protected them, whispered to them. Within this cocoon, dreams unfolded. Their sleep was not separate from the forest, but part of it, woven into its heartbeat. Science tells us that forests breathe. Through photosynthesis, they inhale carbon dioxide and exhale oxygen. But beyond the chemistry lies a deeper truth. Forests generate rhythm. They swell and contract with seasons, with weather, with day and night. To live within them is to feel their pulse. For the dinosaurs, this was not background. It was environment. It was existence. Their senses tuned to it. Their instincts responded to it. And their dreams, perhaps, mirrored its cadence. What might it have been like to dream in such a place? Perhaps their unconscious minds replayed the movements of the forest, the sway of branches in the wind, the soft patter of rain on fern leaves, the sudden snap of a twig beneath a distant step. These sounds and sensations, imprinted upon waking life, could echo in sleep, shaping inner landscapes that were not so different from the outer. The forest entered them as breath enters lungs. Dreams became reflections of the world outside, alive, rooted, pulsing. The pulse of these forests was not only life, but also danger. Predators hid within shadows. Venomous creatures slithered across roots. Sleep was never absolute, never without risk. To close one's eyes in such a place was to surrender to vulnerability, to trust the body's instinct to awaken at the faintest sound of threat. Dreams may have been fractured by such vigilance, moments of drifting, broken by sudden surges of alertness. Even in slumber, survival whispered. The forest held them, but it also tested them. And yet, within this tension lay depth. Dreams born in such environments were likely sharper, more visceral, woven with the raw material of survival. Imagine a great herbivore, its massive body slowing into rest. It dozes beneath towering conifers, lulled by the forest's rhythm. In its dreams, perhaps it continues to walk, to graze, to wander endless meadows of fern. Or perhaps it revisits the primal memory of running, of fleeing the shadow of teeth in the night. These dreams were not abstractions, but extensions of instinct, carried into the quiet theater of sleep. Still, we must not mistake instinct for emptiness. Even without language, even without the symbolic architectures of human thought, dreaming is mystery. Neuroscience suggests that REM sleep, the stage where vivid dreaming occurs, is ancient, older than mammals, older even than birds, stretching back into the deep roots of evolutionary time. If dinosaurs possessed it, as evidence suggests, then their dreams were not alien to us. They belonged to the same continuum of unconscious experience, the same vast river of night that flows through all creatures. And so, the pulse of ancient forests did not simply shelter their dreams. It shaped them, infused them, gave them rhythm. Just as a lullaby carries an infant into slumber, the forest's heartbeat may have carried these colossal beings into states of inner wandering, where time stretched and dissolved. The rustle of leaves, the chorus of insects, the cool drift of night air, all became part of the unconscious fabric of dream. To stand within such a forest now, if we could, would be to feel eternity pressing close. Every sound would be larger, every shadow deeper, every silence more profound. For the dinosaurs, this was home. For their dreams, it was cradle. The forest did not end when their eyes closed. It entered them, becoming a realm of memory, sensation, and instinct that we will never fully know, yet can still imagine. The pulse of ancient forests has faded. Their trees are gone, their voices silenced. Yet the echoes remain, in fossils, preserved in amber, holding insects forever still, in the very air we breathe, oxygen shaped by the ancestors of those vanished green giants. And when we dream beneath our modern skies, perhaps we too touch the same rhythm, faint and distant, but still alive. For the forests of the past did not vanish completely. They live in the deep memory of the earth and in the dreams of every creature that has ever slept within their shadows. Every age carries within it the seeds of its own ending. For the dinosaurs, that ending did not arrive suddenly, not at first. Extinction often begins as a whisper, not a roar, a slow, nearly imperceptible shift in rhythms, a quiet unraveling of balance. To understand how time stretched differently when dinosaurs dreamed, we must enter this whisper, this gradual thinning of their world. Long before the sky blazed with fire, the earth itself began to change. Seas that had once stretched wide receded, shorelines reshaping continents. Volcanic activity surged, releasing fumes that thickened the atmosphere. Temperatures wavered, climates shifted. Forests that had thrived for millions of years began to falter, their roots straining against drought, their leaves falling too soon. The great green pulse that had cradled the dreams of giants faltered in places, a rhythm growing unsteady. The animals felt it first, though not in the way we imagine. They did not predict endings, did not anticipate collapse. Yet their lives adjusted subtly. Migration routes stretched longer. Food grew scarcer. Waterholes dried more quickly under the sun. The whisper of extinction was carried not in words but in hunger, in thirst, in the slow exhaustion of movement. And still, each night they slept. Still, they dreamed. For even in decline, life clings to rhythm. Perhaps their dreams mirrored the growing instability. A great herbivore, once lulled into sleep by abundant meadows, now dreamed of wandering farther, of searching endlessly. A predator, once assured of prey, now dreamed of pursuit without capture, the chase extending beyond reason. Dreams reflect not only memory, but need. In this way, the whisper of extinction may have seeped into their unconscious minds, carried by instinct into the landscapes of sleep. The earth, too, seemed to dream differently in this time. Great volcanic outpourings of basalt, in what is now India, released gases that shrouded skies, altering weather patterns across continents. Seasons became unpredictable. The familiar cues of light and warmth shifted, confusing the cycles of plants and animals. It was as though the world itself drifted between waking and dreaming, between balance and disarray. Yet extinction is rarely absolute in its silence. Even as conditions worsened, life persisted. Some adapted, finding niches where others failed. Small mammals scurried in the underbrush, opportunistic, resilient. Birds, descendants of certain dinosaurs, adjusted their habits, altered their diets, carried on their line. In every great fading, there are survivors, torchbearers of life who carry the rhythm forward into a changed future. And still, the great creatures continued to sleep. Their massive bodies folded into the earth at night, their breaths misting the cooling air. They closed their eyes not knowing that an ending loomed. In their dreams, perhaps nothing had changed. The forest was still lush, the rivers still flowed, the sky still opened wide above them. Dreams are merciful in that way. They do not always bind themselves to reality's decline. Within the sanctuary of sleep, life may continue as it was, even as the waking world shifts toward silence. Then came the moment that transformed whispers into thunder. A vast rock, a wanderer from the heavens, hurtled toward the earth. When it struck, it did so with a force beyond comprehension, releasing more energy than billions of atomic bombs. In an instant, fire spread across continents. Shockwaves tore through forests. Tsunamis swallowed coasts. The skies darkened with ash, sunlight dimmed, plants withered, and food chains collapsed. What had been gradual became sudden. What had whispered now screamed. And yet, even here in this violence, silence followed. After the first inferno, the world grew dim, colder, quieter. Forests that had thrived for eons lay broken. The earth exhaled smoke and ash, its pulse slowed to a fragile rhythm. For countless creatures, the end arrived not in fire but in famine, in the long quiet that followed. Imagine the last dinosaurs to sleep upon this altered earth. They closed their eyes under darkened skies, their bodies weakened, their hunger gnawing. Did their dreams hold memories of abundance? Did they, in their final sleeps, wander once more through forests alive with green? Or did their unconscious minds mirror the silence, endless, dark, still? In this way, dreams became both refuge and elegy, a quiet continuation of life even as life itself dimmed. The slow whisper of extinction was not only theirs. It has come before and will come again. Entire ages have ended this way, trilobites vanishing from oceans, giant dragonflies fading from skies, mammoths disappearing from frozen plains. Extinction is not anomaly, but rhythm, woven into the deeper pulse of existence. Each time, the world shifts, adapts, renews. But the whisper remains, reminding us that even the greatest empires of life dissolve into silence. For us to contemplate this is both humbling and soothing. We, too, are fragile. We, too, dream against the backdrop of impermanence. Yet in knowing this, there is a strange comfort that all things, even endings, are part of the same unfolding, the same great continuity of time. The dinosaurs did not vanish utterly. They left descendants in the form of birds, and they left their memory in the very stones of the earth. In a sense, their dreams still echo, faint but enduring, within us. Extinction is often imagined as a cataclysm, but in truth, it is also a whisper, a quiet slipping away as gentle as sleep. It begins subtly, spreads slowly, and then arrives all at once, leaving behind silence that is not empty but waiting. And just as night always follows day, endings give way to beginnings. For in the silence after extinction, the seeds of new life stir. The earth forgets quickly. Forests regrow over ruins. Rivers carve new channels, erasing ancient landscapes. Winds scatter the dust of empires. But the sky remembers. Above us, the heavens hold the traces of what has been. Every comet, every star, every faint whisper of cosmic radiation is a fragment of memory, written not in stone, but in light. When the great rock struck the earth and ended the reign of the dinosaurs, its echo was not confined to this planet. Dust and debris rose high into the atmosphere, some escaping gravity altogether, drifting into space. The skies bore witness to the fire that consumed the world. In a sense, they still do. The boundary between the Cretaceous and the Paleogene, recorded in a thin layer of iridium-rich clay found across the globe, is mirrored in the dust that once lingered in the upper atmosphere, casting shadows for years. The sky does not forget such things. But beyond the immediate catastrophe lies an even deeper memory. The stars above the dinosaurs were not the same stars we see tonight. The heavens change slowly, but certainly. Constellations drift, stars are born and die. Galaxies move across the endless dark. When a brachiosaur lifted its head to the night sky, the constellations it saw were arranged differently. The stars of Orion were scattered more loosely. The North Star was not the same guiding point. Time stretches differently in the heavens, where millions of years pass as quietly as the beating of a heart. In this way, the dreams of dinosaurs were cradled beneath alien skies. Imagine a world where the familiar constellations of our own nights had not yet formed, where the Milky Way's band gleamed the same, but its pattern of brightness was subtly altered. Their nights carried a different poetry, one written in unfamiliar stars. The sky remembers them, just as it remembers us, by holding the same canvas of eternity under which all lives unfold. Astronomers today can trace these celestial shifts, rewinding the positions of stars across millions of years. Through such reconstructions, we can imagine the heavens as they appeared to the creatures of the Jurassic or the Cretaceous. It is humbling to think that their dreams unfolded under skies we will never see, skies that existed once and will never exist again. Time in the heavens does not vanish. It transforms, carrying memory forward in shifting constellations, in light that travels vast distances to reach our eyes. Light itself is a memory. The glow of distant stars takes thousands, sometimes millions, of years to arrive here. To look at the night sky is to look into the past. Some of the stars the dinosaurs saw still shine upon us, their light continuing its endless journey. Others have since burned out, their brilliance extinguished, leaving only a faint relic of their existence crossing the cosmos. Every starlit night is a dialogue between past and present, between what once was and what remains. The sky remembers, not with words, but with light. And there is another layer of memory in the heavens, the cosmic background radiation, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang itself. This subtle wash of microwaves fills all of space, a whisper of the universe's birth. Dinosaurs, though they never knew it, lived beneath this same silent glow. So do we. Every creature that has ever dreamed has done so beneath this ancient, persistent memory of the beginning. The sky remembers not only extinctions, but creation itself. There is a strange comfort in knowing that memory is woven into the fabric of the universe. Nothing vanishes entirely. The dinosaurs' extinction, terrible as it was, is preserved not only in fossils and stones, but in the larger story the sky continues to tell. The rock that struck the earth came from the heavens, a messenger of cosmic change. Its impact was catastrophic, but its origin reminds us that we are part of something greater, something that stretches far beyond the boundaries of Earth. Perhaps, when the dinosaurs dreamed, their unconscious minds carried some echo of this connection. Sleep dissolves the boundary between self and world. In their dreaming, might they have wandered beneath skies that remembered more than they themselves could? The stars would have whispered the same truths they whisper to us, that life is fleeting, that worlds are fragile, but that existence is vast and enduring. Even today, we look up and wonder. The same act that once carried the gaze of a sauropod or the eyes of a small, bird-like dinosaur now carries ours. The sky is patient. It has waited for each new consciousness to awaken beneath it, to question, to dream. It remembers them not in detail, but in presence, in the simple fact that they once lived and once looked upward. We join them in that lineage of wonder. Extinction is silence, but the sky does not fall silent. It continues speaking in the language of light. Stars burn, fade, are reborn. Galaxies collide and reform. Nebulas spread their luminous veils across the void. To stand beneath the night sky is to stand within a memory older than Earth itself. And so, when we say the dinosaurs are gone, we must also say they are remembered. The sky holds them, just as it holds us. The light that passed over their sleeping forms now travels endlessly outward, carrying with it a record of their existence. In some remote corner of space, that light continues, a faint but indelible mark. Perhaps the truest remembrance is not in stone or bone, but in this ceaseless transmission of presence into the infinite. The sky remembers, and in remembering, it invites us to do the same. To look upward is to join a conversation older than life, to feel that even in silence, nothing is ever truly lost. The dinosaurs dreamed beneath these same heavens. We dream beneath them still. And one day, when we too are gone, the sky will remember us. Though the age of the dinosaurs ended in fire, not all of them vanished. Some carried forward, transformed by time into creatures that still walk and fly among us. The lineage of ancient reptiles did not stop at extinction's edge. It bent, reshaped, and found a way to endure. In every bird that lifts itself into the air, there is an echo of a world millions of years gone. Feathers are not merely ornaments of flight. They are whispers of survival, threads connecting the present to a dream once dreamt beneath alien stars. It is easy to forget this. Birds seem so fragile, so delicate, their bones hollow, their lives fleeting. Yet fragility hides resilience. To outlast the cataclysm that ended the reign of giants was no small feat. Small feathered dinosaurs found refuge in adaptability. Their bodies light, their diets varied, their behaviors flexible enough to weather the collapse of ecosystems. In their dreams, perhaps, they carried memories of both terror and endurance. When the skies darkened and the great beasts fell, the ancestors of birds found ways to persist in the silence that followed. Science gives us glimpses of this continuity. Fossils reveal the gradual shift from scales to feathers, from teeth to beaks, from clawed forelimbs to wings. Each change was not only a physical transformation, but a step in the survival of memory. In the hollow bones of a sparrow, there is a lineage that stretches back to theropod hunters. In the bright plumage of a hummingbird, there is a faint reflection of ancient feathers once used for warmth or display. Evolution writes in the language of echoes, carrying fragments of the past forward into new forms. But what of their inner lives? If dinosaurs dreamed, and birds dream still, then their subconscious landscapes also survived. Birds today experience REM sleep, the stage most associated with dreaming. Their eyes flicker beneath closed lids, their bodies twitch, their heads shift as if lost in silent visions. When a crow dreams, does it dream with traces of its distant ancestors? Do those echoes carry not only through bone and feather, but through the delicate patterns of the mind? Perhaps in their dreams, birds travel through landscapes they never knew. Ancient forests filled with ferns, skies crowded by pterosaurs, the shadows of massive herbivores passing below. Science cannot confirm such visions, yet the continuity of the brain, the similarity of sleep, suggests that memory lingers in ways we cannot fully measure. The survival of dreaming itself may be the most profound echo of all. There is also poetry in their voices. Birdsong fills our mornings, a chorus of life that survived the silence of extinction. Each call, each melody, is a continuation of a conversation millions of years old. The syrinx, the unique vocal organ of birds, evolved into an instrument of astonishing variety. Its origins, too, lie in deep time. When a nightingale sings, when a raven croaks, when a sparrow chirps, each is a note in a song that reaches back into the vanished world of the dinosaurs. These sounds, like feathers and bones, are echoes. In the presence of birds, we encounter living memory. They are not relics frozen in time, but active participants in the ongoing story of life. They adapt to cities, to forests, to deserts, to oceans. They remind us that survival is not the absence of change, but its embrace. To live on is to transform, to carry forward the essential while reshaping the form. The dinosaurs live on, not in stone, but in flight, not in silence, but in song. And so, when we watch a bird take flight, there is a deeper story unfolding. Its wings carry not only its own fragile body, but the momentum of an ancient lineage. Its feathers glint not only in the sun of this moment, but in the light of millions of years past. Each heartbeat is a continuation of countless heartbeats before it. Each dream, a whisper of dreams dreamt in a world of giants. This echo extends to us as well. Humanity's fascination with birds, our myths of phoenixes, our envy of wings, our poetry of flight, may arise not only from admiration but from recognition. Somewhere deep within, we know they are not wholly separate from the lost world we can only imagine. When we listen to their calls, when we marvel at their migrations across continents, when we rest beneath their aerial grace, we are listening to the after-echo of the age of dinosaurs. In feathers and bone, in song and dream, the dinosaurs continue, not in the same form, not with the same grandeur, but with a subtle resilience that may be more profound. The giants fell, but the small and the light endured. The world changed, but the essence carried on. If extinction is silence, then birds are the reply. Fragile yet enduring, delicate yet ancient, small yet infinite in what they represent. And perhaps, as they sleep and dream tonight, their visions stretch back further than their fragile bodies remember. Perhaps they, too, dream of skies filled with stars that no longer exist, of forests that turned to stone, of ancestors that once ruled the earth. In their dreaming, the dinosaurs are not gone. They are still present, still whispering, still alive in the beating of wings against the wind. The echoes remain, not only in stone, not only in memory, but in every feather that stirs, in every song that rises, in every dream that unfolds behind a closed eye. The dinosaurs did not end. They transformed, and their dreams, like their bodies, found a way to take flight. There are moments in Earth's history when time itself seems to hesitate, when the rhythm of life falters and silence expands into something almost eternal. The end of the dinosaurs was such a moment. In the wake of the asteroid impact, the forests burned, the skies darkened, the seas turned restless, and for a long span of years, the world seemed to pause. Ash rained down, thickening the air, veiling the sun, pressing the planet into a kind of twilight. In that darkness, time stretched. For the creature, the ash itself carried a strange memory. Layers of soot, still found today in rocks across the globe, are silent testimony to that age of aftermath. When geologists split open stones and reveal thin black lines, they are looking into the minutes and hours of that long night. Each layer is a frozen record of how slowly the earth rebuilt itself. In these ashes, time has been preserved in its most fragile form. But what of those who lived through it? In the hush of extinction, survival required stillness. Mammals retreated into burrows, birds into hidden refuges, reptiles into their deep shelters. Their lives became measured not by abundance, but by endurance. Time passed not in growth, but in waiting. To wait is to experience time differently. Each moment heavy, each silence stretched into something almost unbearable. And yet, in that waiting, the seeds of the future were kept alive. There is a haunting paradox here. Time can seem both unbearably slow and yet, in retrospect, unimaginably fast. To the survivors, years of famine and shadow may have felt endless. Yet to the earth itself, millions of years flowed swiftly after the Great Fire. Ecosystems reforming, forests regrowing, new species emerging to take the places of those that had fallen. Time stretched for the living, yet sped past in the vastness of geological scale. This duality is what gives the ashes their strange poetry. Science helps us reconstruct this fragile in-between. Evidence suggests that the world remained darkened for months, perhaps years, with global temperatures plummeting, photosynthesis nearly halted, and ecosystems fractured. For a generation or more, life was diminished, pressed into silence. Yet this very reduction created a space for new beginnings. Without the giants, the small found room to grow. Without the dominance of the old, new forms were allowed to take root. The ashes were both an ending and, perhaps in that silence, dreaming itself changed. If dinosaurs dreamed of endless green forests and star-streaked skies, their descendants may have dreamed instead of hunger, of waiting, of shadows. The subconscious would have absorbed the stillness, translating it into visions both fearful and surreal. Time in dreams often bends and breaks. A moment becomes hours, and hours dissolve into nothing. In the ash-shrouded world, perhaps dreams became the only refuge, where light could still be found, where MEM. And yet, it was not only a time of despair. From the ashes came resilience. Seeds buried deep in the soil waited for the return of the sun. Small creatures kept their lineages alive with quiet persistence. Each heartbeat, Each breath, each dream was a defiance of the silence that sought to smother life. Time in the ashes was not empty. It was gestation, a slow preparation for renewal. The earth has carried many such pauses, many long silences between chapters. The extinction of the dinosaurs was not the first, nor will it be the last. Time moves differently in these interludes, as if the universe itself is taking a breath between verses of an endless poem. For us, these moments are reminders that endings are rarely abrupt in the vast theater of the cosmos. They are drawn out, layered, stretched into years, centuries, millennia. The ashes teach us patience. They teach us that what seem. Even now, when we walk across volcanic landscapes or touch the remnants of burned forests, we glimpse the same lesson. Ash is a reminder of both fire and rebirth. It is the residue of endings, but also the soil from which new life grows. Time in the ashes is not wasted time. It is transformative time. The slowness, the stillness, the waiting, all shape what comes next. So when we think of the dinosaurs, we should not only imagine their grandeur or their sudden end, but also the long silence that followed. In that silence, the shape of the modern world began to emerge. In that darkness, the path toward mammals, toward birds, and ultimately toward us was set. The ashes were not only the end of their dreams, but the beginning of our own. And perhaps, as we close our eyes and drift into sleep, we touch a fragment of that silence. Time feels stretched, the waking world falls away, and we rest in a stillness that seems infinite. Just as life once waited in the ashes, so too do we enter the soft ashes of night, where dreams prepare us for another dawn. After the great silence of the ashes, the world began to turn again, slowly, unevenly, into new rhythms. The familiar seasons of warmth and cold, growth and rest, did not return all at once. For decades, perhaps centuries, Earth's climate staggered like a wounded giant, unsure of its own balance. The asteroid had not only ended lives but disrupted the very patterns of the planet, its rains, its winds, its cycles of renewal. What had once been steady and dependable became fractured, shifting, forgotten. The sun, veiled by ash and particles, created winters that lasted beyond their natural boundaries. What should have been springtime sprouting was delayed, muted, uncertain. Summers, stripped of warmth, failed to feed the land. Winters grew crueler, harsher, dragging on until the concept of a season lost its familiar meaning. This was an age of forgotten seasons, when time, usually measured by the blossoming of trees or the migration of animals, became instead an endless gray uncertainty. For the survivors, these blurred cycles changed everything. Plants no longer followed predictable rhythms. Their flowering and fruiting stuttered, sometimes failing altogether. Herbivores wandered in search of nourishment that never came, and predators followed with equal desperation. Migration routes, once reliable as clockwork, led to empty fields and barren coasts. To live in such a world was to live in disorientation, when nature's great calendar had been erased. Yet within that confusion, a new order was slowly forming. Life, ever adaptable, began to reset its clocks. Certain plants evolved to thrive in cooler, dimmer conditions. Insects shifted their life cycles to match the erratic climate. Small mammals adjusted their breeding, their hibernation, their feeding to fit into whatever scraps of stability they could find. Bit by bit, a patchwork rhythm replaced the lost one. The earth, though scarred, began to hum again, but to a tune no creature had heard before. The forgotten seasons remind us that time is not as fixed as we often believe. We imagine spring always following winter, day always following night, but in truth, These cycles are fragile, contingent, vulnerable to the vast events of the cosmos. A single impact shifted the pattern of the planet for centuries, perhaps millennia. Time itself seemed rewritten, as if the calendar had been torn and stitched back together with missing pages. Geologists find traces of these forgotten seasons in the layers of the earth. Pollen, trapped in sediment, shows sudden absences, years where growth faltered. Tree rings, usually steady records of annual change, reveal narrow bands, signs of years of famine, years when growth nearly ceased. Coral reefs, too, tell stories of waters that cooled, of chemistry altered, of seas unsettled. Each natural archive whispers of a time when Earth's pulse skipped beats, when the music of the seasons was broken and discordant. And yet, from this disarray came transformation. Without the steady dominance of the old order, new species flourished in niches they might never have found. Birds, descendants of dinosaurs, discovered opportunities in the changing cycles, adapting to new climates, filling empty skies with their calls. Mammals, too, found openings in the silence, learning to survive not by grand strength, but by resilience, flexibility, patience. The forgotten seasons created a testing ground, and those who endured emerged stronger, more adaptable, more inventive. There is something profoundly poetic in this, that even when the natural order collapses, life finds a way to create meaning in chaos. The earth was not erased, it was rewritten. The forgotten seasons were not only years of hardship, but years of invention. When evolution was forced to move in new directions, when survival demanded creativity. Time, even when fractured, carried the seeds of possibility. We may wonder what it felt like to live through those disjointed years. For the animals, the sense of disorientation must have been deep. Creatures that once followed migratory stars may have found the skies themselves hazy and unfamiliar. Plants that reached for the sun may have felt only shadows. The world, once predictable, became strange. Yet within that strangeness was a reminder that nothing is permanent, not even time's most sacred rhythms. Perhaps, too, there were new forms of beauty hidden within the chaos. Strange blossoms appearing in unusual times, twilight skies lingering in odd hues, the quiet resilience of seeds sprouting against the odds. The forgotten seasons, though harsh, were not empty of wonder. They were a reminder that beauty is not confined to the familiar. Even in disorder, life sings. And as we reflect on those lost rhythms, we may recognize echoes in our own lives. We, too, experience forgotten seasons, times when the expected patterns fall away, when we wait for spring but find only a longer winter. Times when our own rhythms falter and we must adjust to new ones. The Earth's story is also our story. Resilience in the face of broken cycles, patience in the waiting, hope in the uncertainty. The forgotten seasons eventually gave way to renewal. Slowly, sunlight pierced the haze more consistently. Forests began to regrow, oceans to settle, migrations to stabilize. The earth remembered its song, though it was never quite the same as before. The rhythm was altered, but it was still music. Out of brokenness came a new harmony, one that would carry life forward into the next great chapters of evolution. So, the forgotten seasons were not truly lost. They live within us. They live in the resilience of birds, in the adaptability of mammals, in the very structure of our present world. Every spring that blossoms today, every winter that falls, is a distant echo of that long disordered age. We carry the memory, even if unconsciously, within our bones, our breath, our dreams. And perhaps, when we close our eyes at night, drifting into sleep, we feel a whisper of that ancient uncertainty. The seasons of the mind do not always follow the calendar. Dreams arrive in their own order, shifting from winter to summer without warning, erasing and rewriting their own cycles. In this way, the forgotten seasons of Earth live on in the forgotten seasons of our dreaming selves. In the silence after the dinosaurs, when forests stood charred and the air still carried the scent of ash, the mammals stirred. They had always been there, small, furtive, overlooked, scurrying in the shadows of giants. While dinosaurs ruled the daylight and the open plains, mammals had kept to the edges, their lives unfolding in burrows, in hidden thickets, in the folds of darkness. They were the quiet heartbeat beneath the thunder of reptilian feet. When the great lizards fell, it was not strength or size that preserved life, but subtlety. The mammals had long mastered the art of being small, of enduring without grandeur. They had learned to eat many things, to hide in many places, to wait through long stretches of danger. In this, they were prepared, almost unknowingly, for the long night that followed the asteroid. The first dreams of mammals were not heroic visions, but quiet ones, the dreams of survival. In the deep burrows where they hid from the searing fires and later the biting cold, their bodies curled into tight forms, hearts beating slowly. Sleep, once a daily necessity, became a deeper kind of waiting. Their dreams, if we could glimpse them, may have been of warmth, of seeds stored away, of the return of green shoots above ground. They were the humble dreams of persistence, not conquest. For generations, these creatures lived on the edge of hunger. The lush abundance that had once fed the dinosaurs was gone, replaced by scarcity. Mammals ate what could be found: insects, roots, eggs, carrion. They did not demand much, and this modesty became their strength. In times when the giants would have starved, the small ones endured. Yet, within that endurance, change began. The mammals carried in their blood a restless potential. They were warm-blooded, able to regulate their heat against the shifting climates. They bore their young alive, nurturing them within, protecting them after birth, giving them a chance to survive where cold eggs might falter. These traits, once small advantages, now became the foundation of resilience. Evolution began weaving new forms from the thread of survival. Their brains, too, were different. Even in those early days, mammals possessed a capacity for complexity, not yet the grand consciousness we know today, but something embryonic. The first dreams of mammals were not just instinctive flickers. They were seeds of imagination, hints of curiosity, of play, of possibility. In the long nights of recovery, as they nestled together for warmth, perhaps their sleep carried images of a different world, one where they were no longer prey but participants in shaping the Earth's future. The fossil record tells us that mammals diversified quickly in the aftermath. Freed from the shadow of the dinosaurs, they spread into niches that had long been closed. Some grew larger, testing new ways of life. Others stayed small, clinging to the safety of subtlety. The forgotten seasons shaped them, forcing adaptations of fur, of diet, of endurance. Time seemed to accelerate, evolution branching with a vigor it had been denied for millions of years. But their rise was not immediate grandeur, it was quiet persistence. Imagine the first mammal to venture into an open field, still charred, still silent, the memory of predators lingering in its blood. Each step would have carried both fear and opportunity. In that fragile moment, the dream of mammals was simple: to move into spaces once forbidden. Over time, those dreams grew. As forests recovered, mammals climbed trees, gliding between branches. Others took to the waters, learning to swim and hunt. Still others burrowed deeper, turning the soil into labyrinths of safety and life. The world was opening, and mammals answered with imagination, with daring. Their dreams expanded with the landscape, filling the silence with new rhythms. There is something profoundly moving in this shift. The giants who once defined the age fell in a moment of cosmic violence. But the small ones, the overlooked ones, carried forward, not through might, but through patience. They remind us that history is not only written by the loud, but also by the quiet, not only by the monumental, but by the humble. The first dreams of mammals were whispers in the dark, and yet those whispers shaped the dawn to come. And within those whispers was the seed of us. Every human dream, every story, every thought traces back to those fragile survivors, the mammals that huddled in burrows, that survived winters without end, that dreamed of warmth and food and survival. They carried within them the blueprint of consciousness. Without their quiet endurance, there would be no language, no memory, no reflection on time itself. In a way, we dream their dreams still. Our sleep is filled with echoes of the ancient need for safety, for shelter, for community. We curl ourselves in blankets as they curled in burrows. We gather with others, finding comfort in shared warmth, as they did in the cold shadows of a broken earth. The first dreams of mammals live on in us, woven into the structure of our minds, guiding even the most modern of thoughts. And yet, these dreams were not only about survival. There was also wonder. Even in those early days, life was not devoid of beauty. Imagine the first green shoots breaking through ash, the first flower blooming in a scarred field, the first bird, descendant of dinosaurs, singing in the altered skies. For mammals emerging into this world, such moments must have carried awe, a recognition of possibility. Their dreams, simple though they were, began to include these glimpses of hope. So, when we speak of the first dreams of mammals, we are not only recalling survival in its barest form. We are speaking of the birth of imagination itself. These small creatures, fragile yet persistent, carried within them the potential for every dream that would follow. In their quiet endurance lay the foundation of art, of science, of reflection, of wonder. Their dreams were the bridge between worlds, between the silence after the dinosaurs and the symphony of life that followed. They were the first threads of a new story, one that would eventually lead to us sitting beneath stars, asking what it means to dream at all. The age of mammals did not begin with a roar, but with a whisper. And sometimes, it is the whispers that last the longest. Time in the age after the dinosaurs did not move with the same rhythm. Gone were the thunderous footsteps of giants, the booming symphony of reptilian dominance that had defined the Cretaceous. What remained was quieter, slower, a steady ticking that echoed not in grandeur, but in persistence. The earth had been reset, and survival itself became the clock by which existence was measured. For the small creatures who inherited the silence, time was counted in heartbeats, in breaths, in the careful rationing of energy. A day was not the march of spectacle, but the fragile victory of making it through the cold night, of finding enough to eat, of avoiding the lurking dangers that remained. Each dawn was uncertain, each dusk a reminder that survival had to be earned again. The mammals, the reptiles that endured, the insects, the fish, even the plants, they all lived by this new clock. It was a rhythm of scarcity, a tempo marked by restraint. Where once life had stretched outward into lush, sprawling abundance, now it curled inward, conserving, holding back, waiting. The world was not yet ready to flourish. It was healing, and healing takes time. Survival became the measure of success. A creature did not need to dominate, only to endure. The strongest were not those who conquered, but those who adapted. Some mammals shrank further, conserving resources. Some plants delayed flowering, storing energy for years until conditions improved. Some reptiles retreated into states of torpor, slowing their bodies almost to stillness. Time itself seemed to stretch and compress in strange ways, long waits punctuated by brief bursts of activity. This was the clock of survival, patient, cautious, enduring. It asked not for brilliance, but for persistence. And yet, within this persistence, new possibilities emerged. The creatures who lived through those centuries of scarcity carried within them the blueprint of resilience. Their bodies, their instincts, their very dreams were shaped by this long rehearsal in survival. Evolution was slow, but it was steady, and each small adaptation was a tick in this hidden clock. Consider how this rhythm contrasted with the dinosaurs' age. For millions of years, the giants had lived in abundance, their size and strength a testament to Earth's overflowing generosity. Their lives, though long and grand, were tied to ecosystems of plenty. When that abundance collapsed, their greatness became their weakness. They could not bend to scarcity, and so they broke. The survivors, by contrast, were humble, adaptable, modest in their needs. They lived close to the edge, where time was felt differently, not as endless abundance, but as a fragile thread, always on the verge of breaking. To exist in such a state is to live with heightened awareness of every moment. It is to recognize that each breath matters, that each day is not guaranteed. And so, survival shaped time into something more intimate. The earth itself ticked with new rhythms, long winters, delayed springs, forests growing back slowly over centuries. The scars of impact lingered, and ecosystems healed in increments too small for grandeur. To live in such an age was to wait, to endure, to be patient. But within this patience was the seed of transformation. The mammals, still small, still cautious, began to change. With every generation, new forms emerged, slightly larger, slightly more daring. The clock of survival did not only preserve, it refined. Each adaptation was a lesson learned, a quiet tick forward. Over millions of years, these ticks added up until the clock began to strike a new hour, the rise of mammals. Yet even in their rise, the imprint of survival remained. The instincts born in those lean ages, to hoard food, to seek shelter, to sleep deeply in burrows, to huddle together for warmth, remain with us still. Our bodies carry ancient clocks set to survival. When we sleep through hunger, when we feel comfort in companionship, when we fear scarcity, we are hearing the ticking of that old clock within us. There is something humbling in this perspective. The grandeur of dinosaurs may capture imagination, but it was the quiet endurance of survival that wrote the next chapter. The Earth's story turned not on spectacle, but on persistence. The survivors did not rush. They waited, they endured, they adapted. In the vast theater of time, patience became the greatest strength. And so, when we reflect on this clock of survival, we see more than just an age of waiting. We see the foundation of everything that followed. It was this clock that allowed mammals to rise, that gave birds their second chance, that restored forests and oceans, that healed the earth's wounded skin. Without its patient ticking, the abundance of today would never have returned. We too live by this clock, though often we forget. Our civilizations move with urgency. our days filled with rushing, our nights with restless thoughts. But beneath the noise, deep in our blood, the old rhythm still beats. It whispers to us in sleep, in dreams of safety and endurance, in the comfort we find in warmth, in the instinct to carry on through difficulty. The dinosaurs measured their age in spectacle, in size, in grandeur. The survivors measured theirs in persistence, in quiet victories, in the slow ticking of resilience. And in the end, it was the quieter clock that lasted. The lesson of that age is clear. Survival is its own kind of time. It is not measured in greatness, but in continuity, not in loudness, but in lastingness. The creatures that lived through that long night were keepers of this truth. They remind us still that sometimes the most powerful force is patience, and that even the smallest heartbeat can carry time forward when the world itself has shattered. The clock of survival still ticks. It ticks in every breath, in every act of endurance, in every creature that lives on despite hardship. It ticks in us too, reminding us that we are children of survival, that our dreams are built on the quiet persistence of ancestors who endured when all seemed lost. In the silence after catastrophe, the clock of survival began. It has never stopped. After the long silence, after the centuries where survival was the only measure of existence, the earth began to stir. It was not sudden, not dramatic, not a moment of thunder or spectacle. Instead, it was a slow breath, a patient awakening, as though the planet itself had been dreaming in stillness and was now ready to dream again. Forests were the first dreamers. Seeds that had waited dormant in the dark soil began to sprout. At first, they were hesitant, small shoots emerging cautiously into the pale light of a recovering sun. Then, season by season, they grew taller, reaching upward, weaving canopies once more across the wounded land. The forests did not look the same as before. The age of conifers and cycads had given way to flowering plants, angiosperms unfurling bright blossoms into the world. Colors returned, soft at first, then bold, painting the earth with a palette of renewal. Rivers dreamed next. Their courses, once choked with ash and debris, began to clear. Fish that had survived in hidden pockets swam again through widening streams. Water brought movement to landscapes that had been still for too long. Each ripple was a whisper of continuity, a reminder that life flows as surely as water carves valleys. The skies followed. Where once they had been dimmed by clouds of dust, they cleared into blue. Sunlight warmed the surface, and winds carried seeds and spores across continents. Insects took to the air in swarms, buzzing from flower to flower, carrying with them the promise of pollination and renewal. Birds, descendants of the great dinosaurs, filled the skies again with song. Their wings, once overshadowed by the wingspans of pterosaurs, now stretched freely into open air. Their voices were the Earth's first music after silence. With forests, rivers, and skies reawakened, the animals followed. Mammals, no longer confined to the shadows, began to emerge. They grew larger, more varied, their forms diverging into new possibilities. Some took to the trees, their small hands clutching branches as they leapt from limb to limb. Others burrowed into the ground, shaping tunnels beneath the roots. Still others wandered the plains, testing the open spaces left behind by the vanished giants. This was the Earth dreaming in diversity, weaving together new patterns of form, behavior, and possibility. Each adaptation was a note in a new symphony, each species a brushstroke in the painting of a new age. Life did not simply return, it reimagined itself. And with each passing millennium, the planet's dreams grew more ambitious. Where once dinosaurs had dominated with sheer magnitude, Now life explored variety. Instead of a few colossal rulers, there were countless smaller experiments. Mammals with sharp teeth and nimble limbs. Birds with intricate songs and complex behaviors. Plants with flowers of every hue. Drawing insects into a partnership of survival and beauty. It was as though the earth had learned from its own history. Grandeur could vanish in a single strike of catastrophe, but resilience lay in diversity, in spreading life into countless forms, into countless strategies, so that no single calamity could silence everything at once. This was the Earth's new dream, not domination, but diffusion, not singular greatness, but shared endurance. The dream was not without difficulty. Climate shifted, oceans rose and fell, continents drifted. Extinctions still occurred, local and global, as Earth's experiments failed or faltered. But each loss was balanced by new creation, each absence filled by unexpected arrivals. The Earth no longer dreamed in singular empires, but in vast, interwoven tapestries. Even the silence of extinction had left its mark on the Earth's dreaming. Creatures carried within them the memory of scarcity, the instinct to endure lean times, the wisdom to adapt when conditions changed. Plants carried resilience in their seeds, some lying dormant for years before germinating. Mammals learned to shelter, to hoard, to raise young carefully. Birds learned to migrate, to chase the changing seasons. The earth itself remembered, and that memory shaped its dreams. From this awakening, entire lineages arose that would come to define the future. The first primates in the branches of the trees, the ancestors of whales beginning their journey from land to sea, the precursors of ungulates grazing on the plains. Each was small at first, tentative, but within them was the seed of worlds to come. When the earth dreamed again, it was not just life that awakened. It was time itself. The tempo of existence quickened, no longer the slow, cautious ticking of survival alone, but a new rhythm of expansion. The heartbeat of the earth grew stronger, pulsing with renewal. It was a reminder that time, even when interrupted by catastrophe, does not end. It pauses, it stretches, it contracts, but it always moves forward. And in this forward motion, the earth dreamed us, too. The long line of mammals, shaped by scarcity, refined by patience, carried within them the possibility of human beings. Though we were still millions of years away, our story had already been planted in that dream. Our capacity to imagine, to create, to wonder at the stars, all of it traced back to this quiet renewal, this planetary exhalation after silence. When the earth dreamed again, it dreamed not only of survival, but of possibility. It dreamed of forests vast enough to shelter countless lives, of skies filled with birdsong, of oceans teeming with whales that would someday sing across their depths. It dreamed of intelligence rising, of eyes opening to the cosmos, of minds asking the same questions we ask now. What is time, and how does life endure within it? And so the earth's dream is not past. We are living within it still. Every flower that blooms, every bird that sings, every breath we take is part of that ongoing vision. The earth dreamed again after silence, and we are among the dreamers. The lesson is simple, yet vast. Even after endings, there are beginnings. Even after silence, there are songs. Even after extinction, there are dreams waiting to awaken. The earth itself teaches us this truth, that renewal is not a matter of if, but of when. When the earth dreamed again, it was not the same as before. It was something new, something reshaped by memory, by loss, by patience. And in this newness was beauty, fragile, persistent, and infinite. The earth is still dreaming, and we are part of its dream. We often imagine ourselves as something separate from the past, as if humanity were a sudden spark lit by accident or fate, entirely distinct from the great continuum of life. But the truth is deeper, older, and far more humbling. we are not separate. We are woven from the same fabric of time that once clothed the dinosaurs, the same breath that filled the ancient forests, the same light that warmed the oceans when Earth first dreamed of life. We are children of deep time, carrying within us the silent inheritance of epochs forgotten. Every cell in our bodies speaks this lineage. Inside us are mitochondria, once free-living organisms, folded into our biology as symbiotic companions billions of years ago. They whisper to us of ancient seas, of a world before complexity, when the first sparks of cooperation became the key to survival. Every heartbeat, every breath we draw is powered by this ancient alliance, a gift from a time so distant it cannot be measured in human history, only in geological ages. Our bones, too, remember. The structure of our spine, curved and stacked to bear the weight of upright walking, carries the echoes of vertebrates that once swam through Cambrian seas. Our hands, capable of shaping tools, painting images, writing words, are built upon the same skeletal blueprint that guided the wings of pterosaurs and the fins of fish. We are not new creations, but living archives, each part of us a page in a story that began long before the first human drew breath. Even our dreams are ancient. The rhythms of sleep, the cycles of waking and resting, follow patterns older than humanity itself. We inherit them from creatures that lived in harmony with the turning of the earth, rising with the sun and retreating with the night. Our circadian clocks are tuned to the planet's rotation, our bodies keeping time with a cosmic metronome set billions of years ago when the earth first spun beneath the stars. But our inheritance is not only physical. It is emotional, instinctual, and deeply philosophical. The fear of the dark that still lingers in the edges of our imagination recalls nights when predators larger than us prowled under starlight. Our awe of fire reflects the first time small mammals huddled near its warmth, seeing safety in its glow. Even our tendency to look upward, to wonder about the sky, is part of this inheritance. For in those skies once soared creatures so immense they seemed to embody the heavens themselves. We are haunted and guided by the ghosts of what came before. And yet, our inheritance is more than memory, it is possibility. From the mammals that endured in the shadows of dinosaurs, we inherited adaptability, resilience, patience. Those small creatures survived by hiding, waiting, enduring scarcity. We carry their wisdom in our ability to plan for the future, to dream beyond the present moment. When we imagine civilizations, write philosophies, or gaze into the night sky searching for meaning, we are exercising an inheritance millions of years old. Consider our senses. The way our eyes perceive color, fine-tuned to the greens of vegetation, ties us to the first flowering plants that reshaped ecosystems after the dinosaurs' reign. Our ability to taste sweetness comes from a world where ripe fruit offered nourishment to primates in the canopy. The architecture of our ears reflects the evolutionary pressures of listening for predators in the night. Nothing about us is entirely new. Everything about us is an echo of ancient survival, polished into something more. The earth dreamed us slowly, over tens of millions of years, through an unbroken chain of beings who carried forward the fragile thread of life. Our direct ancestors, the first primates, swung through branches, their hands grasping bark, their eyes facing forward for depth and clarity. In them was the beginning of our ability to focus, to imagine space, to calculate distance. Later, when our hominid ancestors walked the grasslands, their upright posture was not a sudden invention, but the flowering of a seed planted long before, when small mammals first tested life beyond the shadows of giants. Our place in deep time is both fragile and immense. Fragile because we are the latest bloom in an endless succession, no more immune to change than the dinosaurs who once ruled. Immense because within us lies the sum of that succession, the the distillation of billions of years of trial and transformation. We are the earth remembering itself, speaking its own story through human voices. And perhaps this is why we dream differently from other creatures. Our dreams are not only of survival, but of meaning. We dream of stars, of futures, of the possibility that time itself might hold consciousness. We inherit not only the physical adaptations of our ancestors, but the curiosity, the restless hunger to know. Somewhere in the deep quiet after extinction, the earth planted within life the capacity to reflect, to ask, to wonder, and in us, that capacity bloomed into philosophy, art, and science. When we look backward into fossils and sediments, into the strata of time, we are not merely studying others. We are looking into mirrors. The rib cage of a dinosaur, the jaw of an ancient mammal, the wing of a prehistoric bird. Each one is kin, a distant relative, a reminder that our inheritance is not separate from theirs. It is a continuation. The human inheritance of deep time is not simply that we survived. It is that we remember, not consciously, but in the marrow of our being, in the instincts that stir us, in the awe that fills us when we look at the vastness of the night sky. We remember that time is both destroyer and creator, that endings are not final, that silence always yields to new songs. And so, when we speak of our place in the cosmos, when we ask why we are here and what it means, we must also acknowledge this inheritance. We are not alone in our story. Behind us stand countless generations of dreamers, forests that reached for light, rivers that carved their paths, creatures that endured and adapted, and even the dinosaurs whose vanished world shaped the one we inherited. To be human is to carry deep time within us. It is to live as the sum of countless ages, to bear within ourselves the whispers of ancient oceans, within our bones the memories of vanished empires, and within our minds the possibility of futures yet unimagined. We are not merely alive in this moment. We are the living dream of the earth, stretching from the silence of extinction into the voice of reflection. And in every question we ask, every story we tell, we honor the inheritance of deep time. Time has always been the great river, carrying everything forward, sweeping away empires, species, and stars alike. But within that river lies a paradox. While the current is ceaseless, dreams are timeless. They are the soft embers of consciousness, glowing in the stillness between moments, bridging past and future, memory and imagination. To dream is to step outside the clockwork of hours and years, to drift in a place where ancient creatures still walk, and the unborn future already breathes. Dinosaurs too once dreamed. As they slept beneath the Cretaceous moon, their minds sparked with images we cannot fully know. Perhaps they dreamed of flight, of the hunt, of forests and rivers. Perhaps their slumber carried them into patterns, instincts, or visions beyond survival. And though their world ended in fire and silence, the act of dreaming was never extinguished. It was passed along the thread of life, from creature to creature, until it bloomed in us, not only as survival's rehearsal, but as wonder, as philosophy, as the ability to imagine what does not yet exist. Dreams dissolve the boundaries of time. In sleep, we are children again, or ancestors not yet born. We walk through landscapes that never were, yet feel familiar. We encounter voices that belong to no one and everyone at once. In dreams, extinction is undone, and deep time folds into the present. A forest that burned millions of years ago may rise again in our sleeping thoughts. A creature long vanished may turn its head toward us, alive in memory, alive in imagination. Dreams make fossils breathe. They make silence sing. This is the inheritance of deep time, not only the shape of our bones or the rhythm of our hearts, but the timelessness of our inner worlds. The earth carries memory in stone and sediment, but we carry it in symbols and stories, in visions and questions. We are the first species, as far as we know, to dream consciously of time itself, to wonder whether the universe dreams, whether existence itself is a vast, unfolding imagination. And so, when we close our eyes at night, we are not escaping the world. We are rejoining it. We are stepping into the great continuity of all creatures who have ever slept, from the first organisms that pulsed with chemical rhythms, to the mammals who once hid in shadows, to the dinosaurs who lay beneath ancient stars. In sleep, we are not isolated beings. We are part of a lineage of dreamers, sharing in a current that stretches back hundreds of millions of years. Perhaps this is why dreams feel eternal, even when they last only minutes. They are not bound to the fragile span of a single life. They are part of something larger, the mind of the earth, remembering itself, imagining itself, and whispering possibilities into the silence of the night. To dream is to touch eternity, if only for a moment. When we awaken, we often forget the details, but the impression remains, a residue of meaning, a soft mystery that lingers on the edge of waking thought. This forgetting is itself a gift, for dreams are not meant to be held like artifacts. They are meant to flow like rivers, carrying us gently, reshaping us in ways unseen. We awake changed, even if we do not know how. The dinosaurs are gone, and yet they are not. They live within the soil that nourishes us, within the birds that sing at dawn, within the inherited architecture of our bodies.